Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Breeders' Cup Prep Recap, taking a look back at the Coolmore Turf Mile, an important prep for the Breeders' Cup Mile. It features the horse right now who's established himself with Master of the Seas on the sidelines as the best East Coast-based middle-distance turf horse in the country. His name is Carl Spackler, and he took no prisoners in the Coolmore Turf Mile. He breaks from post position 9, and Carl Spackler is able to get right to the lead in here.
Yeah, tactical speed's his calling card, Dan, but this doesn't get any easier than this. Breaking from the far outside post, he clears this field before the first turn with no trouble at all. Right by them, to the lead, to the rail, and now he's in charge. And it also helps, by the way, that's his stablemate there, Spirit of St. Louis. I guess Saez is just saying, let me take this horse out to the outside here so I don't get in my stablemate's way here.
Yeah, it also hurts when the horse to beat, More Than Looks, who's a very good turf horse, got floated all the way out on the first turn at the back of the pack and now has got to make up 10 lengths on Carl Spackler. More Than Looks once again ran well in only his second start of the form cycle.
Yeah, this is his running style is going to work against him more often than not. That he didn't break sharply from the gate, little trouble to the first turn, and now he's just sitting last in this race. But he is traveling strongly throughout the running here. Jose Ortiz, I'm not sure why he's going to wait so long to get More Than Looks into gear. He's just going to sort of sit on the inside all the way around this final turn. By the time he really gets going, Dan, they're past the 3/16 ball. He's got no shot to catch Carl Spackler because he's in charge up front here.
He's in charge, and he's doing it very easily. Running B, who's sitting the pocket right in behind Carl Spackler, is going to try to make a move at him. He'll flatten out almost as quickly as he arrives onto the scene. Mountain Bear, who threw a fit in the paddock and into the post parade, he makes a brief look on the outside here, but he can't go with them. And it's Carl Spackler still moving strongly, and now More Than Looks begins to kick on the outside.
Yeah, big run through the final furlong here for More Than Looks. It just happens to be way too late, and he cannot get to Carl Spackler. This race, though, really, Dan, just about, at least in my opinion, you can feel free to disagree here, just about the 1-2 finishers. They were clearly the two best horses in this race. I have no problem with the race Mountain Bear ran, but he got a great trip and ride in this race, and he just wasn't good enough. The 1-2 finishers both ran really well.
And they're both going to the Breeders' Cup Mile. And I think a lot of folks are going to say More Than Looks in his first start back at Saratoga, couldn't catch Carl Spackler, but it was his first race off a lengthy layoff, and he charged on at the end in a race that didn't have pace. And in this race, you could make the excuses again. He had too much work to do in the stretch. And they're going to say he could turn the tables on Carl Spackler, and he can. Yeah. But do you say tactical speed kills? And it's killed More Than Looks now twice.
Well, it's turf racing, Dan, especially at the top level of the game. Trips are just really, really important. And Carl Spackler gets himself good trips in his races, and More Than Looks isn't capable of that. He has no early speed. He's at the mercy of pace and trip in every one of his races. He ran great in here. And if you want to, I personally, I think I could argue, and maybe I would argue, that he's every bit as good and maybe better than Carl Spackler is as a horse. But trips are just too important, and he puts himself in bad positions over and over again.
I think you're right about Mountain Bear. He ran really well. He is a temperamental horse that threw a little bit of a fit, but he had a look at it at the 3/16, and Carl Spackler sprinted away from him. As for Running B, this is the best he can do at the grade 1 level. He got a great trip and ride from Giroux. He just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, you could see it in the stretch run of this race. Running B got a great trip in this race, and he tried really, really hard, Dan. He just can't go with these horses, and was just outfinished for third in this race by Mountain Bear. Spirit of St. Louis just sort of sat on the outside. They could have been way more aggressive with him, but they were not going to go after, not that he's a blazing speed horse, but they were not going to go after Carl Spackler in this race. And they just sat on the outside and made sure that he didn't, interfere with the pace of this race in any way. He ran fine, but he's not this kind of horse.
Kukuli came in with a little bit of a reputation simply because I think he's Frankel's brother. He's no Frankel.
He's not. I mean, I guess if you wanted, outside of More Than Looks, obviously, but if you wanted to say one horse had kind of a no chance trip in here, it was Kukuli. I mean, I looked like he maybe stumbled a little bit at the start. Then they sat inside. He got into a lot of traffic through the stretch. Frankie Dettori clearly wanted to make an in-out run with this horse to get him going. He could not get out into the clear, blocked through the final furlong. It looked like he even maybe clipped heels and stumbled a little bit in the late stages. I'm not sure he was going to be that much closer at the end, Dan, but this trip was kind of a disaster.
Let's take a closer look at Carl Spackler. He's won 7 of 10 lifetime. Tyler Gaffalione aboard, gave him a really nice trip in this race, the Turf Mile, Coolmore Turf Mile. Chad Brown, of course, is the trainer. Carl Spackler hinted at ability last year. He won a couple of graded stakes races at Saratoga. Chad put him away for a 4-year-old campaign. It's paid off. He's won 4 of 5. He looks like a mile specialist. The Breeders' Cup Mile is always tough because the toughest Europeans seem to come over each and every year. Does this horse stack up with them? A 102 buyer last time out, a 105 the time before.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who comes over, Dan. I'm not really sure what it's looking like as far as the European or maybe even the Japanese contingent is concerned here. I have a lot of respect for Carl Spackler. I don't think he's any kind of a superstar. I do, his last two races are obviously really, really good with absolutely perfect trips. And you can't always count on that stuff when you come to Breeders' Cup against better horses and big fields. But does he get the right trip and can he be there at the end? Absolutely, he can. It's your call what kind of price you want to take on this horse.
Let's take a look at the payouts for the Coolmore Turf Mile. Carl Spackler scores as the chalk. More Than Looks a good second. Mountain Bear was third. Keep an eye on both Carl Spackler and More Than Looks in the Breeders' Cup, especially More Than Looks, simply because he's going to be a good price in this race, and he might be racing himself back into true shape in his third start of the long layoff. Carl Spackler, though, got the better of him for the second consecutive start in the Coolmore Turf Mile, and Chad Brown will send him the Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup.